Bend the knee!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Don Willie, back again in the house that Magor built, here with another subscriber request. This one from my man, Hedge Knight Killer. Apparently, he's not into Hedge Knight, so I guess he's not a fan of Sir Duncan at all. But anyway, so I'm here today to talk to you about dragons. Now, while I will be talking about dragons in general, I'll mainly be talking about dragons from House Targaryen, since they're the only ones that we know by name in the story. So unless you haven't been paying attention, dragons are from the Balerion Peninsula, and the Valerians, before they started their empire, they cultivated and learned how to tame dragons. And there are many legends about how dragons first came into the world, but we're not exactly sure. And as of the beginning of the story for Song of Ice and Fire, there weren't any known dragons in the world. Now, there's speculation that there might have been dragons in the Shy or even, further east, but, none of these reports are confirmed. And, much of the knowledge that we have about the dragons that were previously in Westeros, during the Dance of the Dragons, Aegon's Conquest, and so on, come from either references made in the Song of Ice and Fire series. You have the Princess and the Queen, and the Rogue Prince. So we also have a newer source that has a little bit more detail, and that would be this book here, World of Ice and Fire. If you happen to want to know more about dragons, Dance of the Dragons specifically, and some more of the goings on and more of the names of the dragons, great book to pick up. Very good reference material. Just gonna put this down. Now, the most notable dragons that we have, there's two of them that are probably the most notable. And first one being Balerion the Black Red. Now, Balerion was Aegon the First dragon. This is the dragon that he rode with his sisters in order to take over the 6 kingdoms of Westeros that he was able to conquer. But also it is believed that he rode Balerion, and this is what allowed him to make the map table of Westeros that he had at Dragonstone. Now, Balerion the Black Red, as we know, was probably the biggest dragon that we've had in the story thus far. He lived to be, I believe, over 200 years old. He was around even before Aegon the First. Basically he died of extreme old age. Now, his fire is said to have helped forge the Iron Throne, out of the many swords that were collected by Aegon along his route of conquest. And the other dragon that we know of, or that is most notable throughout the story, is another black dragon called Drogon, who is Daenerys' dragon. Now, he is a much younger dragon than Balerion was. He was named after Daenerys' husband, Khal Drogo, and he is said to be by some as like Balerion reincarnated. Side note, I find it kind of funny that while House Targaryen sigil is a 3-headed red dragon on the black field, their 2 most famous dragons are both black. Anyway, so we have Daenerys' other dragons, who are Rhaegal and Viserion, named for her son that died during childbirth, and also her brother, who was crowned by her husband, and definitely not in the way that he wanted. So going back to Aegon the Conqueror's time, you had also the other two dragons, which were Vhagar and Meraxes. House Targaryen had a litter of dragons throughout their reign for about, the first 150 years or so, until the Dance of the Dragons, in which they died out during the reign of Aegon III, earning him the name Dragonsbane, which pretty sure he didn't find flattering, since, who wants to be known as the guy who basically these magical creatures were exterminated under. Now, it is said that the Maesters possibly had a hand in killing off the dragons, because they, just aren't fans of magic. So, that could be true. We have no absolute proof for it, but many people have, read into the books and created these theories, as they often do. Now, with the rebirth of Daenerys' dragons, there's much speculation about, the possibility of Bran warging one of the dragons, the possibility of dragons being killed by the end of the story, the possibility of re-emergence of other dragons from faraway lands, and also there is the tales of the Ice Dragon. Now, for those of you who only watch the show and don't read the books at all, you may have never heard of an ice dragon. Now, George R. R. Martin wrote a story back in the 80s called The Ice Dragon, which many, like myself, speculate is actually set in Westeros, like during the early part where the first men came across, because it is said that dragons were in Westeros thousands of years ago, and so that story is set in a time before the Wall, and also it might have partial relation to the others. Now, we hear about the ice dragons living in the Shivering Sea, which is to the northeast of Westeros and north of Essos. Now, one of the magical items that appears in the story is known as a dragon horn. Now, currently, the owner of that dragon horn is Euron Greyjoy, uncle of Theon Greyjoy, and he has his brother Victarion on the way to Essos to try and basically steal one of Daenerys' dragons with that horn. We're not sure exactly how this works, because, supposedly all of the records about taming dragons were lost when Valyria basically was blown to ruins by the 14 volcanoes that sustained their mining operation. So, not exactly sure how this is going to work out in terms of, what happens when the horn is actually blown, because no one has seen this for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, there's not anything on how dragons were actually tamed. We know that the Valyrians mastered it, and the only ones other than Targaryens who were in Westeros who had dragons were House Balerion, who married into the Targaryen dynasty as well. And, during the Dance of the Dragons, because so many people were getting killed on both sides of that war, there was an edict put out that basically anybody who had any Valyrian blood who could bind with the dragon would be given lands and titles, to help in settling that war. And so, dragons and Valyrians, Targaryen dynasty, all go hand in hand. And it will be interesting to see when it all plays out, how they will shape the world going forward. Will they all be killed off? Will they scatter to the winds? Will Daenerys take all of her dragons and say, fuck this, I'm out of here? Who knows, right? But anyway, listen, thank you guys again. And I'll be back with another video later this week. Shout out to Hedge Knight Killer. You guys already know the deal. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, come back for more. That's been my time. Don Willie, I'm out.